you're a millennial, you've been through a lot in your life. We've had a ton of the once in a lifetime or once in 100-year events. And right now we just want some stability. We are getting to that age where we are having families, and getting that stability in our lives is important. And one milestone in every millennial's journey is home ownership. And right now you're going, Jordan, I may not be ready to buy a home just yet, and that's perfectly fine. That is not the purpose of my video, is to convince everyone that they are in a position to buy right now. But what I do want to do is, as a fellow millennial who has bought his home and helped other people buy and sell homes, I want to equip you with the knowledge to make a game plan so that you know when you are ready. Hi, my name is Jordan Brown. I am a millennial home buyer and realtor here in the greater Austin, Texas area. And thank you for visiting my channel today. I've got tons of buyer and seller resources as well as home tours on my channel. We've got playlists for days, so feel free to browse through those. But today in this video, I'm going to take you through the home buying process. Again, we're going to equip you to be able to make a plan so you know when it is time to buy what you're getting into. So first and foremost, you have to understand what the process of buying a home is like. That includes knowing what kind of money is involved with buying a home. So the first step, in my opinion, and this is not just me saying this because I'm a realtor, but especially if you're a first-time home buyer, the expert guidance that you're going to get from hiring a realtor, step number one, hire a realtor, it's immeasurable. I have saved my first-time home buyer clients hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what I have been paid out. And so it's worth it to be paired up with someone who understands your local market, knows what the temperature is for helping people buy and sell, knowing what kind of loan programs are available, and walk you through your deadlines and really help keep you adhering to deadlines and other important critical items that are outlined in the contracts. So number one, hire a realtor. And in fact, if you are looking to buy in Texas and really almost anywhere, I have a fantastic network of realtors that I know, like, and trust, who I can pair you with. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you need some help. If you're on social media, you can follow me at Jordan Sells ATX, and you can DM me on there. I also wanted to let you know that I have a home buyer guide listed in the description of this video below that you can follow along with, or use it as a resource long after you watch this video, or to help follow along with it. So step number two is going to be really important. Many people, they think, well, whenever I'm getting started in the process of buying a home, I should just start going and looking at homes. That's not necessarily the case. What you should really do after you hire your realtor is get pre-approved. Now, what a pre-approval letter is basically a letter from a financing institution where they are saying, based on the information that we have received and reviewed from this client, we are confident you can afford X amount of money. We can loan you X amount for a home purchase. And so just because you are pre-approved for a $400,000 house, just for an example, does not mean that you're necessarily going to be comfortable with a payment that's on a $400,000 house. But talking to the lenders, you're going to be able to get your pre-approval letter. You can get loan estimates to see how much cash to close you're going to need to come out of pocket with to make this purchase happen, and also learn what your monthly payments are estimated to be. Step number three is, now you're ready to start your home search. This is whenever you're going to start getting set up on a portal so that you can see what the homes that match the criteria you're looking for are like in your market. So if you're looking for the more specific that you can be, the better. You want to let your realtor know, hey, I need 4 bedrooms plus an office, 2.5 bathrooms. I really need a 1-story home because of this reason, or just because you want it. I mean, it's your money, get what you want. Be as specific as possible, because then the realtor can custom tailor that portal to send you matching properties that are only matches. It has everything that you want on at least on paper from a specs of the home standpoint. Also, you're going to get started with going to view homes. I suggest that you don't look at more than 5 homes in a single day, because if you're anything like me, after about 5 homes in a single day, all the details start getting blurry. Was it house 1 or 2 or 7 that had that really great backyard? little details like that. So 5 in a day is plenty. And give your realtor a heads up. Like I can very rarely drop what I'm doing at any given time to go immediately show a list of homes. There's so much involved with it. Sometimes the owners are occupying the houses, so you have to get an appointment scheduled with them, or maybe it's a unique scenario where there's a tenant involved, and there's just a lot of coordination that has to go into it. So if you could do a courtesy, give your realtor about a 1 to 2 day heads up with the addresses that you want to go look at so that we can get that scheduled for you. So the next step, your fourth step, is going to be making an offer. This is going to be where working with a local expert, such as a realtor, is going to come in absolute handy for you, because they're going to be able to guide you on things such as, obviously, if the home has been on the market for longer, maybe there's some opportunity to get some seller concessions, which means that the seller is going to pay for part of your closing cost. You can do things like a 2-1 buy down, a 3-2-1 buy down, which is where you're buying the interest rate down temporarily. You can ask, there's just all sorts of different combinations of ways that we can custom tailor the offer to work for your goals. Because you may have a let me rephrase, you 100% have a different scenario and a different, hand of cards that you've been dealt than buyer 2, 3, or 100 that we're going to be dealing with. So we want to know what's important to you. Is your biggest obstacle the cash to close? Do you need help with closing costs? Do you just want to feel like you got the best deal and therefore you want to take money off of the asking price? There's all kinds of different ways that we can make this work. For example, let's just run through a quick scenario. Let's say a $500,000 house. One buyer may say, well, interest rates are really high right now. That's one of my biggest barriers to entry to getting a home. So I'm kind of concerned that, I'm not going to be able to afford it. Let's just say market rate right now, 6.65% interest rate. And that turns them off and says, you know what? I really like this house. I really want it. Price is fine, but the interest rate is terrible. Well, for that buyer, I might suggest that the seller pays for a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down. What this would do would buy your interest rate down on a temporary basis. So let's take the 3-2-1 buy down for example. The first year, if this is where it's going to get a little bit complicated, so I'm just going to use nice whole numbers for you. Interest rates are 7%. Let's say market rate for your interest is 7%. The first year, you're going to get a 3% discount on that interest rate. So for year 1, your interest rate is 4%. In years 2, you're getting a 2% discount, so it's 5%. In year 3, a 1% discount, that would make your interest rate 6%, and then it returns to market rate in years 4 plus at 7%. So within that time, hopefully rates have gone down from 7%, and if it's an advantageous time to do so, you can refinance the home, lock in that nice lower rate, and you did it all on the seller's dime. More or less. The other person may say, I have no problem with interest rate. I'm an all cash buyer, because it's irrelevant what the interest rates are if you're paying all cash, because you're not having to borrow any money. So with that person, the deal is the best portion. So they may say, I want it for $450,000. These are just two very brief, broad examples of what we experience and how we can advise our clients on what scenario, what solutions are going to fit their unique situation. So step number 5, you are under contract. That means that the offer that you and your realtor have submitted has gotten accepted, and you're super excited, right? Well, here's the thing. This is where the real work starts is right here. Now you have, in Texas, you have a negotiated period of time to be able to do your inspection and make some more negotiations based on those findings. And that's called an option period. This is a period of time that you pay for. So for example, if it's a buyer's market and maybe you're the only offer on the table, you can lower the amount of money that you're paying for the option period and have a longer option period. So I remember during the pandemic when houses were flying off the shelves in the Austin, Texas real estate market, if you had a 7 to 10 day option period, that was insane. Most sellers were seeing either no option period or maybe 3 to 5 days at the max. So now that the market has completely shifted and buyers hold a lot of the power, you're seeing more of the normal 7 to 10 to even 14 day option periods, and for a more minimal cost. the option period back in the pandemic might have ran you $1,000, but the option period now may only cost you $250 or $350. So very advantageous right now for buyers, at least in my market. And again, depending on if you're competing with other offers, these are little terms that we can tweak to make your offer look more appealing. But once you're within your option period, it's time to get a third-party inspector out there. This person is there to review the home. They're going to let you know every detail about what is wrong with your house. That can be really scary for a first-time home buyer, but I'm here to let you know a lot of stuff is a lot of times just code related, meaning that at the time that the house was built, certain things weren't required. And now they've made some changes. I mean, you could have a 2023 build house and it be out of code in 2024. It just happens that way. So don't get too discouraged if you get a nice lengthy inspection report. The main things that we're looking for are going to be things that we didn't know when we toured the home before making an offer. This is going to be the integrity of your roof. This is going to be structural, foundation, electrical, and plumbing. All these major things that can mean big cash out of your pocket if there's an issue in the near future. We want to make sure that we know what we're getting into with you. So let's say your inspection report comes back kind of hairy. You still have the time within your option period to negotiate. So let's say the roof needs to be replaced. You can ask them to include that in the purchase of this home. They may say no, and now you've got to go back to negotiation. But you hold leverage because as long as you're within your option period, you can back out of the agreement and only lose your option money. Not bad, right? So if you go under contract, you put your earnest money, which I didn't talk about earlier, but earnest money, at least in my market, is typically 1% of the purchase price. It's money that's at risk after your option period. And that lets the sellers know that you are 100% serious about buying this home. The more money that you have involved, both in the earnest and option money, the better your offer looks, right? Because you have more at risk. You have more to lose if you were to play games with this property. So your earnest money is protected during your option period, and you can back out within that, again, let's just say 7 to 10 day option period and retain that 1% earnest money. You would get that back. However, if you have not, and your option period can be extended, sometimes you'll have to pay money to do so. So, hey, we ran out of time. We need some more quotes. You can extend the option period with an amendment. And sometimes the sellers are going to say, hey, we'll let you do that for another $200. Because again, that's more money in their pocket should you back out. Both your earnest and option money is credited to you at closing should you go through with the purchase of the house. So let's say on a $500,000 house, for example, you put 1% earnest money, that's $5,000. And then option period, let's just say you're in my market and I was able to negotiate a 7-day option period for $250. You now have $5,250 in total paid to the title company that's tied up in this transaction. The $250 you will lose if you back out of the contract within your negotiated option period. You will lose the $5,000 if you back out for an unjustified reason or a reason that's not within the contract, to be more exact. And that's why it's important to have a good realtor. They can build in protections for you. You back out after the option period, there's no guarantee you're going to get your earnest money back. So it's really important. Again, that $5,250 would get credited towards your closing costs should you close on the home. Step 6, I kind of lumped in a bunch of the stuff here. It's getting your inspection done. It's getting your appraisal ordered. These are out-of-pocket expenses typically. These are costs that are not rolled into your loan. You are paying for this out-of-pocket upfront during this transaction. And a good inspector, roughly about $500. Obviously is going to depend on the size of the home and also age and maybe also where it's located. If the inspector has to drive quite a ways, you might have to pay a little bit more money. Then you have your appraisal. Now your appraisal is important because if you're getting a loan, you cannot make an offer on a home where it's clearly overvalued, where you're saying, hey, I'm going to pay you $500,000 for this clearly $350,000 home. The bank's not going to let that fly. So you have to pay for an appraisal. The lending partner that you have gotten or that you have chosen to work with is going to send an appraiser out there. They're going to evaluate the home, come up with a value based on comps. That means recently sold homes in the area that match roughly what your home is like. And they're going to make sure that you're not overpaying for the house. Now, appraisals can be a little bit tricky. Again, it's important to work with a realtor because if the appraisal comes in short, a realtor can fight to make a case as to why that appraisal is incorrect. But it's there to protect you essentially, especially on a VA loan and on an FHA loan. The appraisal is very important. There's a special clause or a special portion within the contract on your third-party financing addendum that's in regards to what happens within the appraisal. I mean, it makes sense, right? If I had something for sale that was, it could be anything, a baseball card, right? And I say I want $5,000 for this baseball card, but all the recently sold comps of that same card say it's only worth $3,000. Well, you would want to know that, and that's what you pay for an appraisal. And it's really there to also protect the lender and just make sure that they're not getting a loan approved or they're processing something that's doomed to fail where the bank loses its collateral. During this step, you're also going to order your home insurance. You're going to get a title. Your title insurance is going to create a title commitment. Basically, it's going to review and make sure that no one else has any claims to your property. There's other aspects where title insurance and policy comes into play, but just know in general, these are negotiated items as to who's going to pay for what within the contract. I cannot stress this enough. Work with a realtor who can negotiate this stuff for you and who's in the know as to how these things affect your bottom line, your cash to close, your monthly costs, and so on. So finally, you've done all that. Everyone's happy. We're going to closing. You're going to show up the day of. You're going to bring a valid driver's license to closing. You will have already gotten your figures for what your final monthly cost is going to be. So there's no surprises there. You will have already gotten a notice from title showing how much cash to close that you need to bring. So let's say you've got to bring $10,000 in closing costs or down payment to closing. You need to bring a cashier's check, or you need to wire those funds a few days in advance to the title company. That way everything's done in time. Wires can usually take 1 to 2 days for the funds to transfer. That's why I'm a big fan. Wire fraud's super real. I could tell you a horror story about one of my business partners. He had a listing where the buyers of that property thought that they had sent $300,000 to the title company, but instead they sent it to a scammer who was pretending to be the title company. Crazy. I get upset when I lose like $20 out of my, like if I'm walking around and I pull my hand out of my pocket, I had a 20 in there and it flies away. My day is ruined. I cannot imagine sending $300,000 to a scammer. I don't believe that person got their money back and they had to pay another $300,000 at closing to not lose that property. So wire fraud, very, very, very real. You want to, if you're going to wire funds, never, just as a general rule of thumb, never, ever send money to someone without first calling that party and verifying, one, that they're real, and two, confirming the wire instructions with them. What account am I sending this to? Your realtor can come into play. I do that for my clients where I call the title company. That way there's absolutely no confusion as to who is getting what money. It's just an extra step that I take to ensure that things are legitimate for my client. And then there you have it. You're going to go to closing. You're going to present your driver's license. You got to get the wrist warmed up. You're going to sign more paperwork than probably ever before. And by the end of it, they're going to disperse all the documents to all parties once everyone has signed. And then it goes through a funding period. A lot of people think that when you go to closing, that means you're going to immediately get the keys to your home. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes, especially, it gets tricky where if you're closing on Friday and it's 4 p.m. and your title companies aren't open on the weekends typically. So if it doesn't fund in time, you're waiting until Monday to get the keys, which can be very upsetting for some people. So knowing these little things can really avoid some unnecessary headaches. So yes, it has to close and fund in order for you to take possession of the home. And there you have it. That is the home buying process in a nutshell. it's really not that bad, right? I like to try to take this very ominous, impossible task of buying a home and really break it down into just bite-sized pieces, 7 easy steps that anyone can follow. But the next part is, Jordan, what kind of funds do I need to have in order to even consider buying a home? And it's a great question because you have to understand what's going on in your market. For example, Austin, I'm just going to give you some info on Austin, Texas. We were the #1 most moved to city in all of the US from basically 2020 to Q1 of 2022. Right now, mid 2024, we are the #6 highest city that's having an exodus, meaning people are leaving Austin in droves. So 2 very different markets, right? Interest rates have absolutely changed. In 2022, they did something that had never happened before. Interest rates doubled within the span of under a 12-month span for the first time in history. So people who were maybe used to those 4% interest rates saw 8% very quickly. And that changes how much you're paying for the same home. You have a $500,000 home at 4%, that looks a lot different. That payment looks a lot different than a $500,000 home at 8%. So first and foremost, you need to know how much am I comfortable with spending on a home, and kind of let the payment dictate what your budget is. But remember, I mentioned earlier, just because you're pre-approved for a certain number doesn't mean that you have to max that number out. But it's good to know, it's a good reference point. That way you know kind of the quality. I know here in the area, I know kind of where once I hit a certain criteria, I can expect a certain jump in the quality of the build. Location is important. All these factors play into this. So you have to ask yourself, what's important to me in a home? But obviously payment is important. A good rule of thumb, there's something called the 28% rule. The 28% rule states that 28%, no more than 28% of your monthly household income should be allocated towards a house payment. That's how you go house broke, is when you ignore rules like that. So let's use nice even numbers. Me and my wife, we purchased our house and we did that together. So let's just say that we made $10,000 per month. That would mean $2,800 is the maximum that we should spend comfortably on a mortgage. And then you can kind of work it from there. How much down payment money do you need to get to that point? Sometimes you're going to want a really nice house. Some people are, I'm trying to make videos very relatable to people who are either buying their 5th home, their 10th home, or their first home. But at the end of the day, we all have the same problems, is affordability. But that affordability and the way that we get there looks different for everybody. So if you're trying to get to a certain payment and you really love a house, it's important to know, how much down payment do I need, or what kind of interest rate do I need? How can I get to that payment? Same thing with first-time home buyers, especially because you're investing very heavily in something, and having a clear idea as to what your goals are with this home is also super important. I have helped people who have told me, yeah, Jordan, we're going to be in this house for at least 10 years, and then maybe we'll turn it into a rental. We're going to be in this area for a really long time. I take that information, we make a plan to get the home. We do. And then a year later, the same person tells me, hey, actually, we want to move to this other area. Well, had I known that this was only going to be a 1-year stint instead of a 10-year, I could have made a much better plan. And I can't help you if I don't know what your goals are. Some people, they're looking to buy investment properties. Well, it's important to know Austin is not a cash flow friendly city right now. It's more of an appreciation play, where if you want to become an investor in Austin, your goal better be, 1, to either buy it all cash. That's the only way that you're really going to start cash flowing. Or B, you have to understand that you're going to need to hold on to the property to let it appreciate in order to get your money back. Some people, they're with rates where they're at and with where home prices are, they're buying investment properties and they're actually paying out of pocket, maybe $500 to $1,000 per month to own the property, with the hopes that in 5, 10, 15 years, that the appreciation has gone way up and that property is now way more valuable. Completely different goals, as opposed to day one, I want to be making cash every month from this property. So you can see understanding your goal, super important. And me and any other realtor can only do our best if you don't tell us what your goals are. So let's talk about what other kind of money is involved. You have your down payment. Down payment's going to vary. You have programs that are 0% down. That's how I bought my house, actually. I paid $0 out of pocket from my home. Now, that was back in 2018. That was before prices went absolutely insane. I got very, very lucky. But that doesn't mean that there aren't programs out there. I helped another person with this same, it's called a USDA program here in Texas. And a USDA loan is 0% down. There's certain criteria that you have to meet to be able to qualify. But this other client of mine, very good friends of mine, they bought their house 0% down USDA. And in fact, I got them, based on the numbers, a refund for their earnest and option money. So when I say they moved in for $0, I mean they moved in for $0. That was their biggest hurdle. They were paying almost what their mortgage is in rent. So that wasn't the obstacle for them. The obstacle was how much money saved up out of pocket to buy the house. So check into what other, kind of zero down programs. There's grants available for first time home buyers. There's hometown hero discounts through builders. There's all sorts of stuff to be able to help make this transition happen for you. Builders offer incentives all the time, especially the closer to the end of the year that we get. So again, just all stuff to keep in mind. Down payment, all the way down from 0%, or you can pay all cash. You can put 100% of a down payment essentially. More commonly though, with first-time home buyer loans, you're going to look at no more than about 20%. And the reason 20% is a great goal for putting on a down payment, that's because if your loan to value is not at 80%, meaning you've put less than 20% down payment, you are paying PMI, private mortgage insurance, which is there to protect the lender in case you default on your loan. It is an added cost to you, an added monthly cost. So if you can save up and avoid paying that, fantastic. However, if you're like 95% of us out in the world who don't have 20% down, then that's okay. There's other programs. You have zero down. You have conventional loans that are as low as 3%, more commonly around 5%. And then you have an FHA loan, which is a government-backed loan that's 3.5% down. So really, there's all kinds of options to be able to make this work as long as you qualify. What other costs are associated with buying a home? I mentioned earlier, you have your out-of-pocket expenses. You have your appraisal. Appraisals can be, in my area right now, roughly about $850. If it's a negotiated item in there, you may have to pay for a survey. Surveys can be quite expensive. Maybe about $500 is a good average range for an average house. You have your inspector, which again, about another $500. These are all out-of-pocket expenses that do not go necessarily towards your closing. So that's good to know. What out-of-pocket expenses do I have? Now you have something called closing costs. Closing costs are completely different than your down payment, and they are not paid to third-party people. Your closing costs are usually anywhere between an extra 2 to 6% of the home purchase. So if you have a $500,000 house, usually that's going to be anywhere between about an extra $10,000 to $30,000. It just depends. I've very rarely seen it on the higher end, like towards that 6%. Usually it's closer to about the 2 to 3% range. Now this could change because you're going to see, unless you've been living under a rock the last few years, or within the last year, that the NAR settlement has rolled out. NAR is the National Association of Realtors. Basically, buyers are going to be responsible for paying the commissions for their realtors. There's more to it than just that. It's always kind of been this way, and people just have a really poor way of explaining it. I've always told my clients, you are hiring me at this agreed upon amount. My ultimate goal for you is to make that zero out of pocket for you. That's the negotiation aspect of it. That's me asking the seller to pay for it or making it work within the deal for you. And I always let my clients know, I will let you know on a house by house basis what that looks like, because not all listings are going to offer to pay for your buyer's agency. I need to let my client know that, because now we are going to be on the higher end of closing costs. I need to set that expectation for them. What are closing costs? They're your prorateds, which are going to be like the taxes owed for the year, your HOA fees, insurance premiums. Then you have things like your lender fees. You have like an origination fee, your lawyer fees, all that good stuff is kind of coupled up into one category, and it's called your closing cost. So again, 2 to 6% is a good rule of thumb. If it's upwards of that higher range, more than likely we are going to be asking for some kind of closing cost assistance. And what that can be the seller paying for a portion. There are limits to this. I have a cheat sheet where it tells me, based on the loan, what your down payment is, what kind of concessions we can ask for from the sellers. Because people don't know that. A lot of realtors don't know. One, they don't know that USDA is even a thing, which is so funny. And then two, they don't know that there's limits on how much you can ask for. You can't just ask somebody for $80,000 worth of closing costs. Like, if it's not within the limits that are allowed, there's no point. So knowing this, it's going to be critical for making it work for your scenario. Other costs, I know that this sounds silly, but it is important to notate that when you become a homeowner, many people are used to being renters, where if something goes wrong, you can just call the landlord and say, hey, the refrigerator's out or the oven stopped working, and they're going to take care of it for you. When you become a homeowner, that is now your responsibility 100%. There are things called residential service contracts, also better known as home warranties. And home warranties are again, a negotiable item. It's something that I can ask for in the contract, and it will basically be on the seller's dime to provide 1 year worth of a protection for your major systems, for your appliances, for your plumbing, electrical, all that good stuff. It just gives you options. That way you're not completely dead in the water with the costs. Like, you're going to get some kind of help typically from a residential service company. So ultimately what I'm trying to say, and what I've hoped that you've learned in this video, is that knowing whether or not you are ready to buy a home is mainly coming from a place of knowledge and having a plan, and knowing if the home that you're looking at or the situation that you're looking to put yourself in falls within those plans or not. I would never advise anyone to put themselves in a bad position, especially because right now, homes in my market, homes are coming down in price. We were the number one most depreciated home value city in all of America, and that was in 2023. We went down 19%. So if you bought a house 2 years ago, your home is down almost 20% in value, and that's not even considering what's going on this year. Home ownership is a risk. You're betting on the future of where you choose to live, and at some point you hope that money comes back to you. I think if you look historically, the housing has traditionally appreciated about 3% year over year for a very long time. And then I just mentioned, if you bought a house last year thinking that it was going to appreciate 3% year over year, there's been a 22% swing in the wrong direction. And you have to be okay with that if you're going to be in a position to buy a house. I think if you chase the market, you'll never be ready to buy a house. If you want to learn a little bit more about me, I'll link this video right over here where it kind of introduces who I am, what my journey has been. I mean, at the time, my wife and I collectively made like $70,000 a year, and the market was completely different. And I remember when we saw what our payment was going to be, and it was $900 more than we were ever used to paying in an apartment, and going, holy crap. That's not a small number. It's funny because right now, the average home, the mortgage payments would be double what our payment is. So I'm actually really thankful that we took the risk, but we were in the position to do so. And you have to be there too before I would ever recommend getting involved with house buying. Everyone's situation is different. You have a unique set of scenarios and assets and incomes and debts and all sorts of stuff that accumulates into you having a very unique position in order to get to being ready to buy a home. And so if that's something that you want to explore with me, I have my contact information down in the description below. You can follow me on Instagram. I talk to people on there all the time about their house buying needs and their scenarios. I have people who are in other states and other cities. I can still help you out. Like I said, I have a network of realtors that I can connect you with. And then I like to be really involved, where if I connect with you and I'm referring business out to another realtor, I like to keep up with you and make sure that things are on the up and up, and that I can answer any questions without overstepping my bounds, because things are different from state to state. But I want to be a support system for you. I want to get you connected with someone that I know, like, and trust. I interview other realtors to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you. And so if that's something that you're interested in, or maybe you're moving to the Austin, Texas area and you want to work with me on your own purchase, I would be honored to. And I take a great pride in a no pressure sales approach. I always believe that the relationship and putting you first is ultimately going to come back to me. So if that's of interest to you, contact info is in the description below. I hope that this comprehensive guide to buying a home here in Texas has helped you understand a little bit more about your own scenario, maybe some reflection as to what work needs to be done to get there, or maybe you're ready right now and this video just confirmed it for you. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked anything that you saw today, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if this video was helpful down in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.